Should transgender girls and women be allowed to play school sports on the girls and women's teams? And why did this suddenly become a pressing legislative issue all across America? The debate was largely fueled by two trans girl high school runners in Connecticut, Terry Miller and Andrea Yearwood, who were dominating the state's girls' track meets, seen here competing in the state finals in June of 2019 and finishing first and second. Between 2017 and 2019, the two of them won 15 championships. This prompted a lawsuit against the state's Association of Schools and Athletic Conference. In it, the parents of three cisgender female high schoolers, meaning their gender identity matches that on their birth certificate, allege that transgender girls have an unfair advantage and seeks to get them banned. The case is yet to be decided, but where the Trump Department of Justice had offered support for the plaintiff's case, the Biden administration has now withdrawn it. In the meantime, 31 states have introduced legislation aimed at barring trans girls and women from playing girls' and women's scholastic sports. Several have already passed in Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, but none has yet become law. Yet, in an Associated Press survey of 24 of the states working on such bills, GOP lawmakers could cite only a few specific examples in their states of trans athletes getting unfair advantages. I've got the perfect guest to ask about this complicated subject. She's a trans woman athlete herself, a two-time Masters track cycling world champion who's spoken and written extensively on this subject. Veronica Ivy joins me now. She's also associate professor of philosophy at the College of Charleston. Veronica, thanks so much for being here. Can we be both inclusive and fair?
I think that's the right question to ask, in fact. Fairness and inclusion are not in opposition to each other. Inclusion is fairness. So I like to talk about, for example, the International Olympic Committee has an Olympic charter. It has 7 fundamental principles of Olympism. The 4th principle begins that participation in sport is a human right, and they mean competitive sport. So inclusion and non-discrimination is part of the Olympic spirit of mutual understanding and fair play. It means, and since 2003, the IOC has had trans inclusion policies. So since that 2003 policy, 2004 Olympics through 2010 or 2018 Sochi, we've had over 54,000 Olympians and 0 trans athletes ever even qualify. There hasn't been a single elite athlete that is trans who's won a world championship. Mine is an age group, for example. So we are seeing 0 evidence of advantage for trans girls and trans women.
Why is this then getting the amount of attention? I mean, every day there's another story, there's another headline, there's another state. If there aren't that many trans athletes involved, what accounts for this?
Yeah, so take me, for example. I am literally the only trans woman track sprinter in the world at my level. So if we want to suggest a non-starter, separate but equal category of trans only, then I would literally be competing against myself at the world elite level. Like, it's a non-starter argument. Why are we seeing this? Frankly, it's a culture war by the Republicans. I think they don't actually care about sport. Largely, this is a proxy war for having lost the bathroom bill fight. Remember the backlash over North Carolina's HB2, for example? So they lost the bathroom bills. They've lost the ability to exclude us from bathrooms and certain public facilities. They've now turned their attention to sport. So, for example, when Donald Trump Jr. hate tweets about me and that my participating in sport is the end of women's sport, I am quite certain he didn't know Masters age group velodrome track cycling was even a thing. He doesn't care about women's sport. Most of these people don't even support women's sport in any sense. They often mock things like the WNBA.
But Veronica, what's the answer to the Connecticut moms who say, hey, my daughter can't compete? And we showed the film clip of those two track stars in Connecticut. What's the response to the parents who say, my kids have no shot? They can't compete with these trans female athletes.
Well, it's not because they're trans that these cis athletes couldn't win. It's that they weren't fast enough. So, for example, neither of these trans athletes became national champions. So, for example, I know one of the plaintiffs got onto a Division I college school, but she failed to make the roster for the track and field team, even though some other freshmen did. So is she going to sue her other cisgender teammates for being faster than her? It's just not because they're trans that they were winning. They were just faster.
I read the Connecticut complaint, and I know this gets into the weeds in a hurry, but the simplistic version is that those born male have a natural physiological advantage that also includes differing levels of testosterone. You know the argument. Your response to that is what?
Yeah, it's a nonsense argument. So depends on how much time you want to let me get into the weeds, because I can literally spend hours on this.
How about 30 seconds?
Yeah. So the first thing is testosterone, your natural internally produced endogenous testosterone, has zero impact on your athletic performance. And we know that. But we didn't know that until 2013. Because everyone just assumed that, well, testosterone is why men are bigger, stronger, faster. But when we finally studied it, there's no relationship between natural testosterone and performance. So why is testosterone banned? Well, every body produces a different amount, and when you add to it through exogenous means, doping, there is a performance advantage. But when you take a body's natural amount and you drop below it, there tends to be a performance disadvantage. For example, in one study, they found in this elite set of male athletes, some men below the women's average for testosterone were competing at no competitive disadvantage with men that had 40 times as much testosterone.